Hello and welcome to season 4 of the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast. As always, I'm your host, Kelby Bachman, and please welcome our next guest on the show, Scott Litterer.
So Scott is from Clarksville, Iowa, where he wrestled for Coach Ron Peterson. After high school, he went on to wrestle at Central College. While injuries may have hampered his career, it also helped him find a passion for coaching. Scott spent over 30 years coaching, mostly at West Delaware and a small stint at Cedar Rapids Prairie. Alongside Jeff Voss at West Delaware, they built the Hawks into a well-oiled machine. Now, along the way, Scott found a passion for helping kids build confidence and excitement for the sport of wrestling. And now he does so on a regular basis as a mindset coach with Z Winning Mindset. Z Winning Mindset offers world-class mental training for athletes and teams of all sports. If you want more information, just head to zwinningmindset.com. You can check out more information there. I'll post a link to that in the show notes. So with that being said, please sit back, relax, and enjoy Scott Litterer.
In the heart of West Union, Iowa, lies a hidden gem in Euphoria Coffee. Owned by local residents Nicole and Shane Havenstreit, they source everything they can from local vendors. From hot and iced drinks, to savory breakfast burritos, to baked goods, to botany tea, and even homemade waffles, Euphoria Coffee is a place your entire family can enjoy. You can find more information at drinkeuphoria.coffee2go.com or visit their Facebook page. And we also have a special gift just for you. Next time you stop in, you can get a free baked good with a $20 purchase. Just mention the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast. Euphoria Coffee. Our purpose is deeper than coffee.
I'm kind of the odd duck in the family, the wrestling guy. So
that begs the question, how'd that happen?
I don't know. I'm from Clarksville. I don't know if you knew that or not, but
Mm.
I don't know. All my friends were doing it, right? My mom was telling me, "Why don't you quit?" Because I didn't win a single match in third, fourth, or fifth grade, my first 3 years. And
Wow. Okay.
I don't know. I just said no. I like it, right? My friends were doing it. I wanted to do what they were doing. And then middle school, we got a coach named Ron Peterson who came in, a young guy, great coach, just really made me love the sport, I think, got me excited and had me set some goals and took off from there. So
Was Clarksville good? At the time, a lot of times it's almost the opposite. Like where I grew up, a lot of my friends or people in my class, they played basketball, so it was really hard to find people in my grade who were wrestling,
Mhm. Yeah. Actually, no. When I was growing up, Clarksville had only had one state qualifier in school history.
Wow.
And he's pretty famous. His name was Rocky Norton, right? He had a tree service. They worked tree service in town, and nobody else had even qualified, let alone placed. Nobody had ever placed. This is around 1980 when I was in middle school. And then when Ron Peterson came, he kind of changed the direction around. He kind of changed the thinking that, hey, why not us, right? Why can't it be us? And then I think when I was maybe a freshman or sophomore, we had a couple kids qualify. And then when I was a senior, my senior class, we had 6 kids that qualified and a couple placed.
Wow.
And then with a couple years after that, he started shooting out. He was competing with Don Bosco and Lisbon for the state title and had some state champions. They had 4 kids in the finals one year, won the state tournament a couple times. So, sometimes it just takes that one person who really has a passion for the sport to make a big difference in a town.
Yeah.
Which, from your uncle, he's done that there.
Yeah. How did he get also buy-in from the parents? I don't know if you've ever really chatted with him about that, but that's also a huge deal, is to get, the members of the community to really go all in on the sport of wrestling. Really, like that can be tough.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure. I don't know if you know Ron Peterson, but he's a fun guy, right? He's got great jokes. He's very personable. And he's not only a super hard worker, but he's just a fun person to be around. He's one of those people who's kind of a magnet. People want to be around him.
Oh, there you go.
And so I think that personality was part of it. And he got to be good friends with a lot of the parents, and just thought outside the box a little bit, right? About raising money, taking kids to camps, bringing people in from, maybe Wartburg. Clarksville's only about 12 miles from Wartburg. So bringing in, people to do clinics, started a freestyle club, freestyle meet. He did things that hadn't been done there before, and people, I don't know how he got them excited about it, but I think a lot of it was his personality and his excitement for the sport, right? I mean, excitement's contagious.
Yeah, for sure. And when you have a personality like that, like you're talking about, I mean, it's pretty easy, especially like was Clarksville a good basketball school or town as well?
I don't, they were okay. I don't
Okay.
remember them being really fantastic at any sports at that time.
Hmm.
When he came in right out of college, and we had another guy come in named Bob Sadoff, and another guy named Dave Waskow. And these guys were all young and they were all excited, right? Waskow was a
Hmm.
basketball guy. Sadoff was our head football coach, great coach. And then Peterson was our wrestling guy. And so, they were all pushing us to get in the weight room. I think just athletics in general just was elevated because of those three guys coming in with excitement. I mean, I remember watching those guys play basketball after school, and they would literally almost get into fights. They were so competitive playing a pickup game of basketball. We'd sit and watch our coaches just compete like there was $1 million on the line, right?
Hmm.
Knock each other over. So that kind of, again, it was just that competitiveness of took everybody to the next level, I think.
Yeah, and you were part of that team. You were saying, that six qualifiers, four in the finals. Oh,
No, that was like
that was
my
later. Okay.
Yeah, my senior class, we had, I think, four that qualified, and there were two juniors, a guy named Jerry Ackerman and a guy named Chris Fenneman. And the two juniors actually placed. Us four seniors did not place. But I still think we were part of kind of breaking the door wide open to, oh, we can qualify for state. We can get medals at state. And then
Hmm.
it was a few years later, some guys like Tony Norton and Tim Norton and Joey Kilman and some guys a little bit behind us that came through and started winning state titles. That really, really took it from, hey, not only can we qualify, but we can win the whole thing, right?
Hmm. Yeah. And so you grew up, gosh, losing in third, fourth, fifth grade. What was it like when you finally got your first win, or do you remember getting your first win and what
Oh
that
yeah,
was like?
I can still remember it. Yep, yep. I mean, I don't remember specifically, I guess, but I remember I was very happy, right? It's pretty frustrating, and my mom's wanting me to, my mom's saying this, you're really not made for the sport. And my mom had been a really good pretty good basketball player in high school, actually.
Hmm.
Um, and my dad played basketball, played football. So we lived on a farm, of course, about 3.5 miles outside of Clarksville. I remember a lot of times if I wanted to lift weights and they weren't around, like I had to run into school, right? I would run the 3.5 miles in to lift, then run the 3.5 miles back.
Jeez.
So it was one of those things where they did a lot to support me, but sometimes there are things where if you really wanted to be successful, you just had to kind of take it in your own hands and do whatever you could to make it happen.
Yeah. How big is your family?
I have a brother, a sister, and um, my mom and my dad. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, and especially when you live on a farm, and I'm sure, generalizing, I guess, but back in those days, it was difficult to have multiple vehicles and getting kids to and from school, and there's chores to be done, and there's just a lot going on that, yes, like you're saying, you had to take matters into your own hand if you wanted to go that extra mile, or in your case, the extra 3 miles, I guess, when you
right. Right. Yeah.
to school. But
Yeah.
um, so what happened after college, like, or after high school, I should say? Was college in the cards, or?
Yeah. I went to Central College in Pella.
Yep. Okay.
Um, Wrestled there. Freshman year, I was an average. I was backup guy. I was 10-10, I think, as a freshman. Jumped up a couple of weights. Was kind of tired of cutting weight
Yeah.
after high school. Cut a lot of weight in high school, not so much in college. Went from 132 to 150. Was 500 as a freshman. Really started getting excited about wrestling again between my freshman and sophomore year. I think worked hard in the weight room. Sophomore year, started off the year pretty well. Made it to the finals of Cornell tournament. It's like a 16-team tournament. Made it to the finals. I think placed top 3 at another tournament. And so I felt like I was really making a jump. And then let's see what happened first. Was wrestling at the UNI Open and uh, dislocated my shoulder. Came back from that, got emphysema all over the side of my face right before Christmas. It was to the point where it was in my ear, and I was like losing my balance. I went home early for Christmas break. Came back from that. Was working out after Christmas. Tore my ACL.
Mm.
So at the time, they were ACL surgery recovery was a year basically. At the time,
Mm-hmm.
so I went to Iowa City, and they were telling me, "Hey, Dwayne Goldman just made the national finals for Iowa without an ACL."
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, if Dwayne Goldman can do it, why can't I? So I decided to just rehab without getting it fixed. I guess I'm no Dwayne Goldman, I guess, but um, I tried to wrestle without, and I made it for a while. Was wrestling in a duel against Buena Vista my junior year, and I blew it out again. Actually, after my junior year, I had a coach named Greg Lonning. What's his name? Fantastic coach, huge mentor in my life. Unfortunately, passed away a couple of years ago. But I was going over across campus. I walked over to his apartment. He wanted to meet with all of us to talk about off season, getting ready for the next season, our senior year. And I decided I wasn't going to go out because, I'd been hurt 2 years in a row, wasn't able to finish. Just felt like I was, kept hitting roadblocks. And I got to his apartment. He said, "Well, actually, I've got another offer for you. I want you to be a student assistant coach as a senior."
Wow.
So huge, huge pivot in my life where I went from thinking I'm giving up wrestling to, oh, I get to be a coach. And I learned more that year as a senior in college, helping coach my buddies and coach the younger guys than I learned so much that year about coaching, right? And
Mm-hmm.
loving the sport, and just from there, that's really what made me decide to make sure I stayed in coaching. I think after college was
Mm-hmm.
having that opportunity to help coach, and we had a pretty good team back then. We won the conference. Probably one of the last times that Wartburg didn't win the conference. I think
Mm-hmm.
we finished 5th at nationals that year. Had a couple of my close friends that made the national finals that year. So it was a good experience. And like I said, and my coach, Greg Lonning, he ended up leaving and going to Wisconsin lacrosse, and he worked at Litterer for a long time. He was a national champion at Litterer, actually, but he was always there too, right? I could always call him if I had questions. When I started as a coach at West Delaware, when I had questions, he was always there for me, right? Every time I call him, he was encouraging me, giving me ideas. Same thing with my high school coach, right? I was really, really fortunate to have some great coaches. My freshman year, I had a guy named Ron Johnson at Central, another outstanding guy. Really taught me a lot, not only about wrestling but life. So, really fortunate to have the coaches in my life that I did.
Yeah, I want to back up real quick. When did you decide you were going to wrestle in college? I mean, was that in the cards, or did that start to float around your senior year, or what was that like, or what timeline, I guess?
I'm not sure. So I qualified for the Greco Junior Nationals my junior year, and so we had training camp at Central College.
Oh,
Ron
okay.
Johnson, Matt Deal was on that team, I think. There were some Central guys, right? It was at Central College. And I had 2 friends that played football at Central College that were a year or 2 ahead of me. So with their recruiting and then getting to know the coach, Ron Johnson, we called RJ, I think was instrumental because I just, I really liked him. I liked the other people that were going to be going there. I had friends that were going to be going there, and I didn't achieve my goals in high school. Qualified for state, lost a really close match first round to the kid who placed 3rd, and then did not get a wrestle back because back then you didn't get a wrestle back unless the kid that beat you made the finals.
Hmm.
Lost to the state 2-time state champ, 6-4 during the year. So I kind of felt like, gosh, I'm close, keep going. And so I think those were the things that kind of influenced me to stick with it in college.
Did you ever think about coaching? Like, I guess I should ask, what was your major when you got to Central?
So I wanted to be a math teacher and a
Oh,
coach.
okay. So you did. Okay.
So I was a math and computer science major, and then I taught math at West Delaware. Is where I
Hmm.
started. Yeah.
Okay. So you knew right away, you kind of had an idea of at least what you wanted to do, going into college and post
Mhm.
college. Okay.
Yeah.
But coaching, was that already something you were thinking about too, it sounds like?
I was thinking about it, but I really wasn't sure.
Okay.
I really wasn't sure. I mean, I wasn't sure. I played football in
Mhm.
high school too. Um, so I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, but I think,
Mhm.
like I said, it was in my mind. But that year of getting to be a student assistant coach at Central is what really, I really got bought into the idea that, hey, I can make a difference in a lot of people's lives through coaching, and which is, really why I still do it today, right? I
Mhm.
mean, that's the whole reason for being in coaching.
Mhm. Yeah, I was wondering how that looked going into, throughout your college career of like, or even in your life about coaching and where that kind of really came into play. And it sounds like it was there. And then that senior year, had he had a student assistant coach? I should ask, like, did Coach Lonnie have
Not
one
that I know
before?
of. I think I was the
Oh,
first one, and I should back up a second to this whole thing when I was in, 7th, 8th grade, and these 3 young coaches, Ron Peterson, Bob Sadoff, these guys came in, and I saw how much they enjoyed what they were doing, I think.
yeah.
And actually, I think I thought it was easy, right? I remember telling one of them, "Yeah, this looks cool, you guys are having a good time, you're working with kids. Looks like it's easy, right?" Well, I had no idea how hard it was going to be, but they made it look easy. So, I think those 3 guys that um, that influenced me too, because that put in the back of my head that, hey, this looks like something I might want to do.
Hmm. Yeah. So the seed was planted there, and then your senior year, you know, um, career ended, but then the watering of that seed began. It sounds like even more of the coaching seed, I guess I should say. And that's where it sounds like it truly blossomed into, all right, this is what I'm going to do. Somehow, some way, I'm going to teach math and I'm going to coach wrestling.
Yeah, and I also something else I should add is I worked summers for a program called Upward Bound program.
Oh, yes. Okay.
It's basically kids whose parents haven't gone to college or maybe financially don't have a lot of money for college. They let them have a college experience for 6 weeks. They're high school kids on a college campus. So I was working, living with high school kids during the summers and helping teach math. If there was wrestlers, we'd go work out in the wrestling rooms. I was starting to work with kids in the summers during college, also through the Upward Bound program.
Cool. And why math? I guess I want to ask real quick.
I was way better at math than any other subject, so they didn't want me teaching English. I don't think so.
Okay. But yeah, so Upward Bound, when did you start doing that?
I think it was after my sophomore year.
Okay.
I think between my sophomore and junior and senior, and then I actually went back in the summers after I was a teacher and continued working there. I think I did 5 years at Central
Wow.
during the summer.
Six, yeah, and that's 6 weeks. And where did like Upward Bound, where did the kids come from exactly? Was it like Central or Pella, I should say? Was it in the Pella area, or were they kind of from all
Um,
over?
Des Moines, and then like Keosauqua, all the little towns surrounding Pella,
Yeah.
um, that whole area all came together, and those kids got to live on campus. Actually, kind of get an college experience during the summer. So we would live with them. Like I lived on a floor with a bunch of high school kids and helped them. They took some classes, like I helped teach a math class with another mentor named Jim Dose, who was a math teacher. And then, just I really got that bug for helping kids and really developing relationships with kids.
Yeah. What was that like? Did you have some like looking back, do you look back at some of the things that maybe you guys did and like kind of roll your eyes or laugh at? Like I'm just imagining, being 20, 23, 24, however old you were when you graduated college and living on a floor with a bunch of high school kids. I just could see how that could be kind of interesting at times, I guess I should say.
Yeah, it was. There was some drama at times. And then you're bringing kids from, big schools in Des Moines with kind of the smaller school people and sometimes there's a big difference in culture.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I remember too a kid from, I think his parents they had moved there from Cambodia. And so because it was designed for people that maybe didn't have parents that went to college in
Yep.
the US. And so we got some kids that were immigrants too. And that really had an impact on me too, because they had a different culture. They were coming with a different culture, different type of food they were used to eating. What really stuck with me from that actually was those kids were so grateful to have what we have in the United States, that many of us that grew up in the US don't appreciate what we have, because they're coming from nothing, right? They're coming from parents, working long hours to make a very small amount of money in these other countries, and they come into the US and the opportunities are so big. And I actually found those kids were probably the hardest workers, because they could see the opportunity in front of them. And I haven't really stayed in touch with any of those kids much, but I'm sure that they're doing well just because of the work ethic and the determination that I would see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and looking back, I'm sure the saying goes, they probably made more of an impact on you than you made on them,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
So how did you end up then in the little town of Manchester?
Well, compared to Clarksville, Manchester's pretty good. But
Yeah, it's got a Hardee's.
yeah, Manchester's like 4 times bigger than Clarksville. So it's got a Hardee's, yeah, and a Burger King, and a
Yes,
Walmart. So
boy.
just, senior year, I'd done my student teaching already at Oskaloosa, Iowa.
Hmm.
And just back then it was looking through the Des Moines Register for a job, right? And saw an opening. They were one of the first schools to put out an opening for a teacher, a math teacher. It was like opening came out maybe early February, and I got the
Wow.
job in late February, so it's pretty early.
Yes. Wow. Did you, had you known anything much about Manchester, Iowa?
Nope, never heard of them. Come to find out later, I had a friend who actually graduated from there, but she was from the little town of Ryan, and Ryan
Oh, yeah.
students also go to West Delaware. And so she would always talk about Ryan, right?
Hmm.
Was it tiny in size, mighty in pride? I think is what she would always say, something like that. So I'd heard of Ryan, but I'd never heard of Manchester. And I think I actually got lost going there for the first interview. But just got there. Was interviewed. One of the guys that interviewed me was a guy named Bob Murphy. If any of you wrestling people are familiar with Bob Murphy, he's been a state tournament official forever. He's probably helped put more officials on the Iowa wrestling scene than anybody in the entire state. But he was, and I think the day I showed up too, they had just lost in the regional duel the night before. So I knew they had some decent wrestling there.
Hmm.
And so it was a good fit, a really good fit.
Perfect. And you get there, what was it like, getting there? Were you overwhelmed at all? I mean, now you're off on your own in a town you're not sure of. Did it take you a little while to acclimate, I guess?
Yeah, and I was young too. I graduated, I was
Right.
21 when I graduated college, 17 when I graduated high school.
Wow.
So it was a little overwhelming, but
Hmm.
the people there, small town Iowa, I mean, I just can't say enough about the people in small town Iowa and Manchester. I haven't lived in a lot of other small towns, but I can tell you that Manchester, super inviting, right? I mean,
Hmm.
and there wasn't a actual assistant wrestling job open or head job open for wrestling. When I showed up, there was a 9th grade football job open and a track job open. So I took the 9th grade football, took the assistant track, and then I
Really?
volunteered as a wrestling coach that first year. And the head coach was a guy named Larry Atwater. He was also the head football coach, great coach. And he had really brought, and Manchester had a great wrestling tradition, but he had brought the level up. And that first year when I volunteered, we actually won the conference meet, the WAMAT conference meet, for the first time in 20 years that year.
Wow.
And just to tell you what wrestling meant to the town already then, when we came back on the bus after winning the first conference championship in 20 years, the fire trucks escorted us into town. This isn't a
Yeah.
state championship. This is 9 o'clock at night, it's dark, and the fire trucks and the police are escorting us into town because we had just won the conference title, right? The WAMAT conference title, which at the time only had maybe 7 or 8 schools in it, right? It wasn't as big as it is now, actually. And so that kind of gives you an idea of the importance that athletics has had in Manchester, and the type of, and I had another guy named Chris Lenz, who was the assistant coach. I think he's been coaching there, gosh, I'm going to guess 45 years at least. Just went into just got a big award at the Iowa Coaches Convention, national award. And he's been a huge part of that program there. He's kind of like the glue that's held that program together for the last 45 years. But he was there too, right? And he was young, had young kids. I remember, he would invite me over for dinner. The head coach, Larry Atwater, he was married but no kids. I would give him a ride home after practice. He'd stick his head in the door, and his wife was Sue, and say, "Hey, Sue, do we have enough for Scott?" And he'd wave me in. I'd go in and eat supper, play cribbage with him afterwards, So I had these coaches that kind of took me under their wing,
Yeah.
And Bob Murphy was another one, our AD. People that took me under the wing, included me, made sure I felt welcome, along with the other teachers. I think that was huge.
Yeah, that's funny. More importantly, how did the 9th grade football team do that year?
I think we were 2-7.
Okay.
So, I guess I learned how to lose that first year. I really hadn't, because we had a pretty good football team when I was in high school. I think we were 8-1 as a senior, so I wasn't used to losing. But sophomore year, I moved up to sophomore coach the next year, and then we had some really good athletes come through. We actually won the state football title in 1991.
Oh, wow.
We won the wrestling state title my first year as head coach there. So the winter of 1990, be the 1991 school year, we won the state duels and we won the regular tournament. That was my first year as head coach there. And then we won the football state tournament the following fall. So I had some really good athletes come through, again, surrounded by some really good coaches at the time.
Yeah. When did you take over then, the wrestling program?
So that first year of teaching, you mentioned, was it hard? Acclimating to the community, I don't think was hard.
Yeah.
Teaching was extremely hard. I mean, I was not very good. I was a bad teacher. Let's just say that.
Why? Well, I guess what makes you say that you were a bad teacher?
Classroom management, right? I knew math, but I had no idea how to manage 25, 15-year-olds, right? And make it interesting, make it engaging. I was learning. I say I was terrible, but I got better quickly. Yeah. But by the end of that first year, I really thought I wasn't made for this. And I was actually going to go back and apply. I was going to go down to interview for another job with Upward Bound, for a full-time job with Upward Bound at Central. This was in the spring of 1990. And I'd already set up the interview. And Larry Atwater, the head wrestling and football coach, I think he came out to I lived in a trailer, actually, a little trailer outside of Manchester. And I think he even came out to the trailer, if I remember right, and said, "Hey, I just took a defensive coordinator job and head wrestling job at Coe College.
Oh.
And I'm recommending you to take over as the head wrestling coach at West Delaware." And so when I saw that opportunity, I decided to stay. That's really what made me decide to stay, is that opportunity to, really make a big influence on some kids by becoming the head coach. And so that's how it all went down, and ended up coaching at West Delaware for over 30 years. So.
Wow. How did your coaching, with that being said, that you were struggling a little bit in the classroom and trying to manage being a teacher, that's your full-time job. You're spending 8 hours a day doing that. How did that not or how did you not allow it to maybe seep into your coaching and bring you down? Because that, it's hard to shut off what just happened during the day and go coach some athletes. Like, you just had a tough day. The kids were wild. They were not listening. I don't think I accomplished anything. And now I have to go coach and I have to be on my game. Like, did that ever get, blurry at times, or tough, struggle, any of that?
Yeah. I mean, the kids were good. These are good kids, right? These are good families.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
But they're still 15, you know? So-
yeah, exactly. Exactly. I don't want to make it sound like, they, sure, they weren't perfectly behaved. I'm sure I
Of
wasn't
course.
either growing up. And, and I think I just figured it out. Like one thing about my personality, I absolutely love to learn. And so I was way better my second year than I was my first year, I'm sure. And I was probably way better my third year than I was my second year. So
Mhm.
it was just learning to figure it out, right? Learning how to be a great teacher and learning how to control my emotions, right? I think that's part of what I do with mindset coaching now, right? Is when somebody doesn't do something the way you want them to do it, how do you approach them after that? And so that's a big part of teaching. It's also a big part of coaching. And of course, I think I developed relationships. That's one thing I do think I'm pretty good at is developing relationships with kids. And so being a football coach, a track coach, and then a wrestling coach, right? A lot of those kids are in my classes. So
Mhm.
as I develop those relationships, that helps a ton when you're in the classroom, right? They're not going to mess around in their football coach's class. They're not going to mess around in their wrestling coach's class. So you're kind of
True.
building an army of people around you that support you and parents that support you. And that makes things easier for sure. So there's a lot of
Yeah.
ways coaching can help you as a teacher. And you learn through coaching, right? They're very similar. They're both coaching and teaching. You're trying to get a kid to go from here to here, right? And the process of getting from here to here is similar in both academics and sports.
Yeah, good point about not wanting to mess around in your coach's classroom because you know you're gonna have to probably deal with it when you go to practice, you know?
Yeah. Do you remember that at all? Do you ever mess around in your coach's classrooms?
No, no, you're right. No.
I didn't either.
Yeah. How was that first year then? You know, I mean, you're taking over after just winning conference, and you know, I'm sure there was some pressure on you to do it again or repeat success or take it to the next level. I mean, did you feel ready at the time to take over?
I don't know. I don't know. My high school coach, Ron Peterson, especially, he had always instilled in us about setting goals super high,
Mhm.
right? He would always, I think the saying went something like, shoot for the stars, you land on the moon, shoot for the moon, you land on the barn, shoot for the barn, you land on the outhouse. That's what he would say. And so it's like he never gave us a choice to shoot for the barn, right? It was always shoot for the stars, right? If you never really should set a goal where you think it's going to be easy to accomplish. You should always set something that you think is beyond your maybe what would be easy for you, or maybe even what you think might be capable right now. And so right from the beginning, I'm like, we're going to win state title. Now, was I naive and did that help me? Yes, because that first year when I volunteered, when we won conference, we finished 58th in the state. And we had two returning qualifiers. One kid named Adam Hutchinson had placed fifth as a junior, and he was coming back. And then we had another kid who ended up getting hurt and didn't even get to wrestle the next year. So we really went into my first year with one returning state qualifier / place winner. Now we did have a great group of seniors. I had a great senior class coming back. A lot of them had finished third at districts the year before. They just were a little bit short, right? And I also had this guy, Chris Lenz, who had been working with these kids, taking them to kids club, it's like a family going to all these kids tournaments since they were little. So that was already there. Another real shot in the arm I got was this guy named Jeff Voss, who was an All-American at Wartburg College, and who was my buddy. I'd gone to Clarksville with him kindergarten through 12th grade. And actually, I was home some point the spring of that first year, and I was at Joe's Nighthawk in Waverly. And I run into Jeff Voss, my friend Jeff Voss. Well, we had stayed in contact, even though he was a Wartburg wrestler, I was a Central wrestler. We visited, we had stayed in contact. And I said, hey, do you know anybody that can teach science, PE, health, and coach? He's like, I can do all those things. So, so he went to school 5 years. I went 4. So he had won an extra year. So he ended up coming to be my assistant along with Chris Lenz. That first year I was a head coach. And so now I've got this young All-American assistant coach who's fantastic with kids, right? Who's working one-on-one with kids in the morning, who's pushing kids, who's just fantastic with kids. And I've got this little bit, well, at the time I considered older, but he's probably in his 30s at the time, Chris Lenz, he's got the relationship with the kids and the parents, right? He's been taking these kids since kindergarten to all these tournaments. And you got me with all kinds of excitement, who's dreaming about winning the state title, my first year as a head coach. And somehow it all came together. I don't know. I mean, I think, between the community support, the parents, the fantastic athletes, and just really good kids I had, the assistant coaches, and we started doing things that weren't being done there before, right? Larry Atwater's a fantastic coach, but for example, we started having a freestyle tournament, right? Taking kids to freestyle tournaments. We started having a camp there every summer where we'd have, we'd bring in guys like Tom Brandst and, Coach Mashik from Don Bosco. We'd bring in these top-notch coaches too. And we just try to ramp everything up a little bit, right? Dream big, and then try to keep your work ethic to match the dreams that you have. And so somehow it all worked out where we went into the year, and it just felt like we just got better and better and better and better. And we ended up qualifying for the state duels. At that time, state duels was 4 teams. We had we had a couple of close meets going in to qualify. But once we got there, I mean, we blew everybody away at the state tournament. The traditional state was a little closer. Back then, there wasn't a lot of kids transferring to other schools.
Right.
And so it was more balanced. There was more parity. I mean, I think we won the state tournament with 76 points that year because it's more spread out, right?
Mm-hmm.
We had 8 qualifiers, I think 5 place winners, 1 state champ. And so it's a little bit different, right? You didn't have to pull in 2 state champs from somebody else's school to help win a state title. And I was really proud of the fact that we did it with our own kids, right? And some of those guys have gone on to be great. A lot of them have gone on to do great things, right? Michael Doyle, you probably heard of Michael Doyle, the head coach at
No,
never heard of that guy.
Never
yeah.
heard of the guy.
I think he just got inducted into a big award at state tournament, right? Head coach of Independence, fantastic coach. He was in that senior class, right? Another guy's a doctor out in Colorado.
Wow. He was in that. Okay. 500 dual wins for that guy, by the way.
Okay. Awesome.
For Doyle. Crazy. But yeah, who else?
There's a bunch of guys in that class that have gone on to just have fantastic, one's a really successful farmer. One's a doctor out in Colorado. Another one's running, if you ever heard of Price Electric, big electric company out of Cedar Rapids, Manchester area.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these guys have gone on to not only be, they weren't only successful wrestlers, they went on to do great things in life too. And so I'm really proud of that too. But
wow. They bring the National Guard in to escort you in after winning a state title. They brought in the fire trucks after a conference. I'm like, they probably bringing helicopters.
There was definitely fire trucks. I'm not sure exactly how many or anything, but yeah, huge celebration. Of course, at that point, I'm thinking, oh, this wasn't that hard. We'll probably do this every year, right? And I remember one of the fans coming up telling me, this is a once in a lifetime deal. You've got to realize that. And I'm thinking, no way, right? And I'm glad it wasn't once in a lifetime, but it took a long time for us to win another state title. So it again, a little bit of, I was pretty naive as a first year head coach and 22, 23 years old at that point. And sometimes that's good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes being a little bit naive. Because sometimes once you get older, you think, oh, we probably couldn't accomplish that. There was none of that in my head at that time.
Yeah, I was, one of the things I'm working on is, talking with some guys. It was 2004 and Waterloo Columbus won the title that year. They beat Emmitsburg in Class 2A, and that was Ortner's first year. I think Chris Ortner, it was his first year at Waterloo Columbus, and he was kind of naive, he didn't really think much about the team score. He was just like, everybody worked hard, and they ended up winning this, team title. And nowadays he's like, God, that's all I think about now is, so now, being naive can be a good thing, in some ways. So what was that next year like? Okay, real quick, I just wanted to ask before we get into some other things is, you win a state title, you win the duels, like you're riding high. And like you said, man, we're going to do this every year, but obviously that's not how it works. So like, how are the next, how tough was it then to, stumble a little bit and have to
Mhm.
rebuild. And I mean, just the pendulum swinging of coaching is
Yeah,
interesting. I don't know what to say, but yeah.
I mean, the head went from here to here and then back down to here again, I think pretty quick because, um, sometimes, especially when you're young, you tend to think, yeah, I did that, right? Maybe you don't have the perspective to look at what the athletes were doing, the family, the support system, the coaches. You don't really at that point maybe realize um, what's actually happening. But the next year I couldn't tell you, but we didn't place top 10, I'm sure, the next year. And we still had some kids qualify for state. We won the conference for 5 years in a row. So that was something that we continue to do. Was really excited about that. But yeah, it's definitely humbling. Part of my growth for sure
Mhm.
to realize that this isn't going to be easy, right? Sometimes it takes a little bit of luck to win a state championship too. It's got to be
Yeah.
so many pieces have to fit together. I mean, you got to keep kids healthy, right? They can't be injured. You can't have sickness. You can't have kids being ineligible, right? There's so many things that have to happen to have a successful year. And so it, it was humbling. And I just think I learned a lot from there. And I ended up being head coach at West Delaware 5 years then. And then I took a job at Cedar Rapids Prairie. I don't know if I've told you that, but I was the head coach at Cedar Rapids Prairie for 3 years. Then I came back and became Jeff Voss's assistant for the rest of my career at West Delaware.
Yeah. I didn't know. Yeah. That. So why'd you end up going to Prairie?
Um, I don't know, just aspiring for bigger and better things, I think. I and my I mentioned Ron Peterson earlier in the talk, my high school coach. He was actually the head coach at Prairie at the time. So I think it'd be fair to say that he recruited me and said, you know, hey, he was going to be the head coach at Simpson College.
Okay.
And so he said, hey, we've got a bunch of good kids coming back. And we'd love to have you interview at Prairie. And there were some other good people interviewing at the time who ended up, a couple of other ones that have been super, super successful. But I got the job probably a lot because I knew Coach Peterson, I'm guessing. And
Mhm.
they needed a math teacher. That was really helpful. I think the other people interviewing weren't math teachers. So I moved my family down there, or actually I was married at the time, but we didn't have any kids. So it was not too hard to move. It was a little bit closer to my in-laws, moving a little bit south. So those are the reasons, I guess. And Prairie, of course, with having had Barry Davis and the
Yeah.
Zaleski brothers and all those guys coming through, and they were, having wrestled at Iowa, it's a pretty big job at the time. Ron James had won a state
Yes.
title there a few years before that, and then Coach Peterson won a state title at Prairie. So, it's a pretty high profile job that I think kind of
Mhm.
pulled me in and wanted to be part of that history.
Yeah. Dale Crozier was on those teams. You
You
know,
bet. Yeah.
he's. I just bring that up. My sister ended up marrying his son, so he's like my sister's father-in-law. And so he,
Okay. Yeah, I love Dave.
obviously not the Zaleskis, but hey, he was with them, I guess.
Yep. Yep. I love talking to Dale. He's been I know he's done a great job with his superintendent's job too.
Yeah. Um, and maybe the other criteria for going to Prairie was they also were, their school colors are black and orange. I don't know. That
That's
must
right.
must
That
be a
was big.
criteria for you.
That was big.
So then you go back to West Delaware. What was that move like? I guess I didn't know that you went to Prairie and then came back.
Yeah. I mean, Prairie, the amount of athletes I had at Prairie was unbelievable. I mean,
Mhm.
my first year there, I think we were third. I want to say maybe third in the traditional tournament, second in the state duels. I think the next year, maybe we were second in traditional, second in state duels again. Third year, I think we were like fifth in the regular tournament, which was a huge disappointment. But then we won the state duels finally. So we were top three in the state duels every year I was there, right? But yet I felt like we were all disappointed every year until that last year, right?
Mhm.
Until that very last time we won because the expectation was to win, right? So And we had my wife at the time and we had a daughter while we were there, and we just kind of wanted to get back to that small town. And I really wanted to spend time with kids, pouring into the lives of kids. And when you're a head coach, you got a lot going on, right? You're dealing with parents, you're dealing with keeping everybody eligible, right? Keeping people out of trouble. You're dealing with bus schedules. You're dealing with running practice. You're dealing with organizing your assistants. And so I really just wanted to get back to having a chance to focus on the kids. And I had some awesome parents, awesome kids, awesome assistant coaches at Prairie who are still friends today. A lot of those kids now are parents and their kids are wrestling. And so I've really had fun watching them and keeping in contact with them. But I think I just need to get back to that small town atmosphere, that small town of Manchester that you were talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it was tough though, going back, because now I'm an assistant and I'm not in charge of everything. And I thought I was kind of used to having that control, right?
Right.
Of what practices were going to be like, how we're going to run practice, how we're going to condition in, how we're going to, and I had to let go of that control. And so that was a little bit tough, but I figured it out.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was a good fit. Again, being back with Jeff Voss, he gave me lots of opportunities to work with kids and be a huge part of the program, even though I wasn't the head coach anymore.
Yeah, you talk about all the things that come with being a head coach. I understand, this was my first year being a volunteer, and some of the stuff that our head coach had to deal with, like nothing bad, but it's a lot. It can be a lot, especially on top of your teaching duties, and it's just, I think we sort of take it for granted, or we kind of think that being a head coach is just you show up for practice, you run practice, and then you go home. And then you take the kids, you take them to the tournaments and duels and whatever. But there is so much more to being a head coach than just showing up and teaching some kids how to wrestle, So I can totally understand, especially at a bigger school like Prairie, like you said, you probably had so many athletes and just a lot of people to hold accountable and to make sure things are going and keeping the train on the tracks. It can be a lot.
Yeah, we were running, I think, 3 kids tournaments a year, like AAU districts, and then we were running a preseason
really?
tournament, another tournament. So just finding workers, to work all the tables, and finding, and I had a guy, a sporter named Larry Harden there, whose sons were both assistant coaches of mine. Chuck Harden was a state champ there, and Craig Harden. And Larry did a lot of work, and his wife Dee. Like, there were lots of good people there that helped, but I was still the head coach, right? So I'm still in charge of running the kids, running the kids program, making sure that we've got coaches at the kids program, making sure we've got workers, making sure we've got referees, right? I mean, people forget about all that stuff, summer camps. Then you've got, a kid goes home after practice, he's banged up, and parents call and go, gosh, so-and-so is his knees hurting him. And so you're dealing with parents, you're dealing with kids. Even when you have the best parents and kids in the world, there's things you've got to be dealing with all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this isn't to say you still don't enjoy it, you still don't love it. It's just the reality of the situation of just being transparent. Like, this is just stuff that we deal with. It's not like, again, it's not that you're complaining or saying this sucks or this was a burden. It was just, this just came with the territory. This is the reality. And you wanted to deal with it because you were the head coach, but it still was just, like I said, it just was a lot. It could be a lot, So when you go back to being an assistant, I mean, did some of that fall and you just kind of relief where all you could do is, okay, I go in, I teach, and I go and I am the assistant coach and I create relationships. And I mean, that had to be a pretty simple life. Simpler life, not a simple life. Sorry, I shouldn't say it was a simple life, but a simpler life.
It was. I'll also say this. I had a teacher mentor who told me that before I made the move, I think, or maybe it was when I was making the move, but he told me, when I went away from being a head coach, the level of my teaching in the classroom skyrocketed, right? And I really had a goal to be just as good as a teacher as I was a coach.
Oof, yeah.
And so I think anything that I wasn't pouring into my coaching, I was now pouring into my teaching to become a better teacher. And so I think my teaching probably got a lot better and this doesn't mean there's not great head coach / teachers out there, because there are, but for me, the amount of time I was putting in for coaching was probably pulling away from what I was trying to do in the classroom. So um, I think I really did enjoy, I was a assistant coach for I think 26 years after being a head coach for 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I really did enjoy my time as an assistant, just getting a chance to really pour into the kids and support the head coach in every way I could and be a great teacher. Those are the things that I really enjoyed trying to do. So
Yeah, a good balance there, it sounds like,
I was much better by then at teaching than I was that first year.
Yeah, better control of the 15-year-olds.
Definitely.
So when you decided that it was time to maybe step away from coaching, um, did you necessarily retire? Is that what we want? Is that what we could say? Is that okay?
Well, I retired in May of 23 from
Okay.
as being a paid assistant coach and being a teacher.
Okay.
And then the 23-24 season, I was still living in Manchester, but I was also working for Wrestling Mindset. When I decided to retire, um, I'm not somebody who can sit around, right? I'm not going to sit around and watch movies all day. I would go crazy, right? I've got to be doing something productive. I'm very goal oriented, right? I'm always very driven, type A personality. So we had used Wrestling Mindset back, I'm going to say like 2013 or 2014. We had Gene Zanetti zoom in with our team. We actually had a different person the year before do that. And I just saw the power of working with the mind, right? And so, and we had used a lot of their stuff. Mitch Payton and I, a guy named Mitch Payton, who's an assistant coach, really successful insurance agent or insurance business owner in Manchester. Him and I would lead these leadership sessions after school every Tuesday with any kids that want to get better at leadership. And so we probably have 25 kids come in every Tuesday after school for about a half hour before we'd start practice. They come into my classroom and we'd always start with leadership stuff. And by a month into it, we were doing all mindset stuff with them, right? It just seemed to always transfer into mindset stuff. And we're using a lot of the wrestling mindset stuff at the time. And so when I decided to retire, I'm like, I saw something on Wrestling Mindset's podcast or something that said, hey, we're looking for coaches. So I called them up, asked them for a job. And so I started working for them a few months before I retired in 23. And last year, 23, 24, I still went to practice a couple times a week, went to all the meets at West Delaware, and I was also coaching mindset in between. Now I'm in Missouri. I moved to Missouri to be near my grandson. And now I'm done coaching at West Delaware. I'm completely working with Wrestling Mindset now and working with a whole bunch of Iowa teams, which has been really fun.
Mm-hmm. When did this leadership start to come in and wanting to work with the wrestling, like not just the wrestling mindset, but just the mindset in general? You said, when did you start that, where you had the kids started to come in?
I mean, I think we always did some of it. We always did some visualization. Mm-hmm. We always did, the goal setting. We always did, we always we would, chant state champs after every practice from my very first practice as a head coach, right? We're always trying to put something in their head, right? Plant a seed. But I think we got more organized about it around 2013, 2014, where we had hired a couple people to come in, including Gene Zanetti from Wrestling Mindset, to zoom in with us. And I would pull in other guest speakers too. Guys like Dave Mitchell from Litterer. He actually drove to Manchester over his Christmas break to do a mindset talk, a leadership talk with our kids. Nick Mitchell from Grandview, he zoomed in last year, did a great mindset talk with our kids. So I think we really took off with it probably about 11, 12 years ago at West Delaware is when we really started focusing more on the leadership, the mindset stuff. And we just saw, great results. I mean, we had great athletes, but I think we were able to just have that little bit of an extra edge that gave us that extra success in the last 11 or 12 years at West Delaware.
When did this become a passion of yours? I mean, it always sounds like it was kind of there, wanting to make, get the best out of your athletes and kids, whether it was upward bound, or like your wrestling athletes or your kids that you were teaching. But it sounds like the passion really started to grow. It sounds like it anyway, at some point around that time, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been interested in sports psychology.
Okay.
I don't, I never really had an organized way to teach it.
Okay.
Um, I was just listening to podcasts. I was like reading books. And there's a Lou Holtz book. That was one of the first books I read front to cover right when I was getting ready to be a head coach. And that had a big impact on me. Bob Murphy, our AD, his cousin was Ron Gray, who happened to be a coach at Des Moines Dowling at the time in the early 90s. And Des Moines Dowling was dominant at that time, right? I think they won like 5 state duels in a row, and we were going golfing. So what do I do all the way to the golf course? I'm picking Ron Gray's brain, right? This is as I'm going in to be a first-year head coach. Well, what do you do with this, and what do you do about that? And so I think one of the things that helped me is I was always trying to learn. And anybody I came in contact with, every camp I went to, right? I'm talking to coaches, I'm talking to athletes, I'm trying to figure out a better way to do things all the time. And I think I'll probably be that way till I'm dead, right? I think it's just something and I think to always be a learner is such a huge thing for people. I hope, I was to give any advice to anybody at this point, I would say never stop learning, right? It keeps you mentally healthy. It keeps you driven. It keeps you excited about life every day. And so I might have went off track on your question, but
No, you're good. Tim Johnson, I've talked with him a couple times, and he's, you know, like he's in his golden years or whatever, and he would echo the same thing. Tim Johnson is still pushing himself to learn, and what's he going to learn today, or what's he going to learn tomorrow? And you're right. It keeps you motivated. It keeps you with a positive look on life instead of looking at it, maybe a not so positive way of, running out of time or whatever. So I like that approach of no matter how old you are to constantly push yourself to learn something new because you never know what that could be or what that could lead to. So, um,
the other thing
anyway,
about
now
Tim, I've met Tim, he's very involved with Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And I would say my faith
yes,
has a big part too. I just believe I'm on this earth to help other people. I think that's the whole reason I'm on this earth. And so, and that comes from my Christian faith. And so I think when you have a big why like that, it's easy to get up every day, right? It's easy to get out of bed when you know why you're getting out of bed. So
true. True. I mean, when you get out of bed and you don't know why or what you're doing, like it's easy to just kind of sit back. Well, I don't have a reason to get out of bed, but if you have that why and whatever it is, if it's bigger than you, it's like you're saying, it's a lot easier to get out, push yourself to just take those first couple steps, and then you never know where the day's going to lead. So,
yeah. And then I think, I was getting to, you were asking me about when did this become a bigger passion? Well, I think I started seeing when we started using the wrestling mindset materials and I started doing some research, like I started seeing like practical ways like we could help kids build confidence, practical ways we could help kids to get excited instead of nervous for matches, right? Actual activities, actual things I can do to help kids be more aggressive, actual things I can do to help kids be more confident, have more mental toughness, right? I just started learning how to teach those skills. And that's what's exciting to me because so many coaches are great at technique, right? They can make their kids stronger. They can get them in great shape. They can teach them great technique. But that fourth piece is missing, right? Is how do I get these kids to perform their best under the biggest pressure, right? How do I get them to stay motivated all year, even when they've been working out hard for 3 months already? And so now that I've learned some specific ways to help kids do those things, to me, that's exciting because now I can really make sure I make a difference in kids' lives. And so I think that's why I'm probably more passionate about it now than I ever have been, because I'm this time of the year after AAU state and women's nationals and state tournament, I'm getting all kinds of texts, and I'm texting parents, how'd mindset go this year? And I'm just hearing some tremendous stories from parents, and so that's exciting. That's really fulfilling to know that you've done some things that have really helped kids, and the skills are applicable well beyond wrestling, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you can be confident walking under a wrestling mat, why can't you transfer those skills into walking into that job interview, right? Or if you can stay motivated for, 3 months of training with 2 days where you're getting thrown on your head, you're making you run till you puke, right? You can stay motivated for that. Why can't you stay motivated for a job that maybe gets tough for a season, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the other thing I think is that the skills I'm helping give kids through wrestling mindset are really skills that are life skills, not just wrestling skills.
Yeah. Yeah. I applaud that, or I echo that sentiment too. Speaking of now we're kind of going into the off season in some areas, post season in other areas. You know, what is kind of the message now? Because I assume, and I'm assuming here that it's different than during the season, or is it sort of kind of a same, not the same message, but you know, I guess what does it look like now that the season is over for some and in the postseason of others?
Well, I mean, we really compare it a lot to strength training in the weight room, right? We say, wrestling mindset, and actually we have mindset programs for every sport you could possibly think of. So I'm actually working with a couple track teams this spring. I'm working with the soccer team. I've worked with baseball players, football players. But as far as wrestlers, speaking specifically to wrestlers, I think the off season is probably even more important to work on your mindset, because if you're going to change the way a person thinks and change some habits and change the pathways in the brain, the neurological pathways that, once we think something, it's easier to think that same thing a second time. Once we think about it twice, it's even easier to think that again. So, for example, if I think, I'm fearless, nobody can stop me, I'm unstoppable. The first time I think that is the hardest time to ever think that. But once I've thought that or said that to myself 100 times, 200 times, 300 times, 400 times, guess what happens when you walk onto the state mat? You don't have to think about that. It's going to be a natural reaction. I am unstoppable. I'm fearless today, right? Nothing can stop me. And we have all kinds of different things that we can train ourselves to think and believe in our heads. And so the off season is a great time, really. I wouldn't put a kid on a mindset program for less than 6 months, because it takes 6 months to really, and I've got several people I work with that have been with me for over 2 years. And so it's a way we do it. It's a weekly mindset call for 30 minutes. And so we have a curriculum with over 65 lessons. So it takes over a year to get through our curriculum also. And the curriculum, I mean, we're helping kids learn how to relax under pressure and wrestle their best. We're helping them learn to be confident. We're talking about body language. We're talking about daily affirmations in our head. We're talking about self-talk. We're talking about visualization. We're talking about coming up with a great pre-match routine before your match. We're talking about things like learning to breathe, to breathing techniques to help you relax and calm and be consistent in every match. We're talking about staying away from the rankings, right, and the records, and focusing on all these things that don't help us score points in wrestling, and getting focused on the process of getting better in the off season. And so I really believe the off season mindset training pays big benefits in February, right? February and March. So I'm excited. We do have a lot of people that, think, oh, the season's over, I should be done with mindset training. If you are really serious about being done, or about being a good wrestler, a great wrestler, you should be working on your mindset in the off season just as much as you're working in the weight room, right? We actually call it, strength training for your mind. We call it strength training for your mind, right? Making your biceps stronger. There's certain exercises to make your biceps stronger. Well, there's certain exercises to make you more confident, make you more aggressive, to make you more mental tough, make you more disciplined, right? And so those are the things that we're trying to develop in the off season.
How do you bridge the gap between saying it and believing it? That's like my biggest question, because you talk about, okay, well, you tell yourself this and you say it and you say it, but saying I'm fearless doesn't make me believe I'm fearless right away. So I guess, how does that work? I guess I'm just thinking about my own kids, and I'm going, they can say that all they want, but I know they're, I feel like deep down they're still gonna be like, am I fearless? You know,
Uh-huh.
or am I just saying I'm fearless? Uh,
Hmm. And I would say at the beginning, you are probably just saying it, right? The first,
right.
and sometimes you have to, um, I mean, you have to create, what we're really trying to do is create habits. Again, we're trying to create these neurological connections in our brain where, um, and I didn't mention the fact that my last 8 years at West Delaware, I was actually an instructional coach instead of a math teacher. So I really focused on how kids learn. I did professional development with teachers and coached teachers at West Delaware in every subject area you could possibly think of. And so I
Oh,
did a
okay.
lot of research on how the brain learns and remembers, and how do we pull that information back out of our brain when we need it, right? So saying I'm fearless, or saying I'm aggressive and relentless, or saying I have no fear of losing or making mistakes, or saying I never ever give up. These are some of our main principles that we ask kids to say twice a day, every day for their entire career. And I will say at West Delaware, for the last 11 years, our athletes have said that before and after practice every day for 11 years. And they may have tweaked some words a little bit here and there, but it's on a huge banner in the room, and they say it every single day. And I don't know exactly how many times you have to say it, but I do know that when you say it enough, eventually you will believe it, right? And then
Mm.
eventually it becomes, um, something that's an automatic thought, and something instead of something you have to try to generate, right? It becomes automatic. You said it's, especially when you say it with your teammates too. You and your teammates are saying, I am aggressive and relentless, right? And then when you start, that first time you realize that you just went out and went after the defending state champ, right? And you weren't scared, then it's like, yeah, maybe I am aggressive and relentless. Maybe I don't care what this kid did last year or last week, right? I'm going to let it fly and give it 100% for 360 seconds in that high school wrestling match. And I could care less who the other kid in the other singlet is. And so it, and you can use visualization, right? There's lots of things you can do to help, but really repeating that over and over and over the course of months is key to changing it from a statement to a belief. And I think that's what you're asking.
Gotcha. And it probably varies, obviously, with kid to kid. Some people might believe it quicker than others, and
Mhm.
and of course, it's probably coupled with other habits as well. Saying it is one thing, but when you do something like that, you couple it with getting a takedown in practice over somebody you've never taken down before, or
Mhm.
pushing somebody to the limit, and you're like, oh, okay, I am. Then that kind of helps you believe it a little bit. As far as you're concerned, um, what are you doing to keep up with like progressive, maybe not progressive, but stay in touch with things that are happening all the time? There's new information coming out, new techniques, new ways to reach kids. Kids are different nowadays than they were before. Like, I guess, you know, really, I'm asking how you keep up on the times.
I mean, I'm constantly listening to podcasts. I mean, I've listened to a couple of podcasts today already, right?
Really?
It's noon. We started at noon. So reading books constantly, podcasts constantly. I'm also a John Maxwell certified speaker trainer and coach. John Maxwell's written, I think, around 90 books on leadership. So reading his books, I went through an entire personal coaching training, public speaking training through the John Maxwell organization. So again, it's back to that love of learning, right? It's, and I work outside of wrestling mindset. I do public speaking. I do training with adults that not, all of my high school, middle school, college athlete work is done through Winning Mindset, unbelievable organization. But I also have my own business where if somebody wants me to come, um, do something that's not what we offer at Wrestling Mindset, I do that too. And so it's just constantly looking for other people that are doing great things, right? Brian Kane, if you've ever heard of Brian Kane, he's a baseball guy. He does a lot of baseball training, works with a lot of UFC fighters. Listen to his podcast, for example. Simon Sinek, listen to his podcast. There's another one called Finding Mastery. Listen to his podcast all the time. I'm in the middle of several books right now. So it's we like to say, learn a little, do a little, right? You read and you learn something, and you go try it with one of your athletes. But I've got about 10 individuals I'm working with right now too. I work with teams and I do individual coaching. So I might read about some way to motivate a kid, or I learn a lot from our Wrestling Mindset podcast, by the way, too. Gene Zanetti does a great job of interviewing guys like Bo Bassett and Bo Bartlett and Vito Arujau and all these world-class guys. He's always interviewing them. So I'm constantly listening and trying to pick up, whatever I can from these world-class athletes that I can use with my athletes I'm working with. So I guess there's a lot of different ways I'm trying to learn, but I think it's super important that we're learning every day.
Is it different to when you're doing mindset training with an individual versus a team?
Well, we're still taking them through a lesson. We've got these over 65 lessons. And so generally with individual, it's a 30-minute phone call where I'm stepping them through, talking with them. They're doing some writing and trying to really focus in on one thing, right? Maybe we're focusing in on changing their self-talk before their match from, I hope I don't get tired, which we would call a prey mindset, to I'm going to wear this kid down in third period. He's going to be mine. I call that a predator mindset. And so trying to switch that thinking over and then have them practice that during the week when I'm not talking to them, and coming back and saying, okay, where did you catch yourself having prey thoughts, distracting negative thoughts that aren't going to help you score points in a wrestling match? And how can we change those into predator thoughts that are focused on you, letting it fly, hitting your best techniques, scoring points on the mat? And so the individual, it's really focused in on that kid, right? If I'm coaching you, I'm developing a relationship with you. I mean, a lot of these athletes I've talked to for 30 minutes every week for 2 years now. So I've had over 100 one-on-one half-hour discussions with these athletes, and seeing great results, by the way. The 3 I mentioned to all placed at state this year. Some of them were JV when I started with them. 2 out of those 3 had never placed at state until this year. So, I mean, I'm seeing the difference it's making in the kids, and that one-on-one is powerful. Now, the advantage of the team stuff, where I might zoom in and work with the whole team, is now you might have 20, 30, 40, 50. I've had up to 80 people in a room, and I'm teaching it all to them. It's not as personal, but now you got 80 people or 20 people or whatever your group is, all benefiting from learning about mindset and doing it together as a group. So they're both good, but they're different.
Is it a 30-minute call with the team as well?
Teams are generally 45 to 60 minutes.
Okay.
I usually would go through 2 lessons. We would go through 2 of the individual lessons during one workshop with a team.
Okay. Gotcha. And if people wanted to reach out and schedule, do they just go to Winning Mindset?
Yep. They can go to Z is for Zanetti Brothers, but zwinningmindset.com. And then if they're involved with wrestling, click on wrestling. Our other site would be wrestlingmindset.com. But if you go to zwinningmindset.com, you'll see all the different sports that we do, which is pretty much everything. I mean, we do things like rodeo, we do things like cheerleading, plus all the normal sports, motocross, right? I mean, if you can name a sport, we'll do it.
That's crazy. I was because I was on the website and I was like, man, look at all these.
Yeah. So, and then, or reach out to me too, right? I do sales also. So I don't know if you want my cell phone number or email, but I can, I'll just give it quick. My cell phone number is 563-608-9464. And my email is slitterer, SLITTERER, the number 2 at gmail.com. Happy to get you connected with some training if you reach out.
Sweet. And you do both, obviously, yeah. You do both. You do the team and the individual. And there's benefits to both. Just kind of tailor it to whatever works best, for you. How many teams are you actually working with? Are they mostly in Iowa? Do you have any anywhere else?
Personally, it's kind of tricky because, for example, I worked with Springville and it's a small school.
Yep.
And so, like I had this fall, I had their football players, cross country runners, and volleyball team all in the gym together. So it's 3 teams, but I was only doing,
Yeah.
I did about 10 sessions with them. Then this winter, I worked with their basketball teams, boys and girls, and their wrestlers. This fall, I'll be doing, some other fall sport or spring sports. But I had about 12 schools, let's say.
There you
12
go.
schools
Okay.
this winter. I've got 3 this spring. The furthest one away this year was North Carolina. I've got a school out in North Carolina. Shout out to Panther Creek, had their first state champ. Their brand new program had their first state champ. Sebastian, he always flexes at me when he sees me. So if you watch this, Sebastian, that's for you. Yeah, so I do most of my coaching now in Iowa. Last winter, I did a lot in Pennsylvania, a lot on the East Coast. But this year, I love Iowa wrestling, right? Mm-hmm. So I really want to support Iowa wrestling, help kids in Iowa. So now I live in Missouri. I'd love to branch off to Missouri too, but right now I'm supporting all Iowa teams except for that one team in North Carolina.
Nice. And where at Missouri are you?
Just north of Jefferson City, Missouri. It's kind of the middle of the state.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. And this last time, so it was the first time, what'd you say, since 1990, you were back at the Iowa State tournament and you weren't in the corner?
Yeah. Wasn't down on the floor.
Yeah, you were down on the floor. What was that like?
Yeah. A little bit hard.
Yeah.
I didn't coach. I was not an active hands-on coach with any team this winter. So, I kind of adjusted to do it throughout the winter, but still have, great relationships with a lot of the kids. Because a lot of the kids I was mindset coaching with during the week, and then I'm watching them from up above because I was at the wrestling mindset table at the Iowa State tournament. Mm-hmm. And so I'm talking with them on Tuesday night, and then I'm watching from, 1,000 feet away. Come on, right? Come on. Watching their body language, right? Do they look confident? Are they doing the warm up that we've worked on, that we've talked through? Are they resetting their mind when something doesn't go right during the match, like we've worked on, right? As well as all the West Delaware kids that I have known since they were little. So it was hard because I wasn't down there, but yet it was exciting because I was there supporting kids from probably a dozen different teams. And in every class, right? I was there 13 hours a day, every day. So it was hard, but also exciting, and glad to see all the success that the kids are having, and excited if, some of the guys wrestled great, but maybe they still fell short of their goal.
Right.
So you think about it, if there's a 24-man bracket, 23 of those people are getting beat, right? That's the way wrestling designed. So how do we respond to not getting what we want? Now there's a life skill, right? Mm-hmm. When you learn to respond well, one of my sayings is never waste your pain. And in fact, I just got done texting a kid that wanted to be a state champ out on the East Coast. Didn't get it, right? He got third, and he's hurting. And so it's how do I help that kid move from here to here and use not only the successes, but also the failures in life to continue to jump levels and get to where he wants to go.
Yeah. And so, on that note, that's why maybe, mindset in the off season is arguably could be more important, because you just didn't get what you worked all year for, all year round for. And now you're, spiraling, or you're in a dark place, and how are you going to respond? And so that's why something like this right now could be very, very beneficial to athletes. So I encourage anyone to reach out. I'll drop some notes in the show notes about how to get in contact with you. But I wanted to ask you too, lastly here, is you do all these things. You pour a lot of yourself into other people, into your family, into your athletes, coaches. What do you do for yourself to reset, to take a break, to refuel? I mean, this is a lot that you're doing for other people, but what does Scott do for Scott?
Well, we spend a lot of my wife and I, we have 6 kids together. I have 3 kids and 3 step kids. Mm-hmm. 2 in school in Michigan, 1 in DC, 1 down here that I live near in Missouri, 2 at Iowa. Um, so it's a lot of time spent with family.
Mhm.
I spent this last whole weekend. I went to the West Delaware Wrestling Banquet Thursday night. Went and saw stepson in Iowa City. Went to see my mom in Clarksville, Iowa. Went to see my brother in Appleton, Iowa. So it's a
Jeez.
lot of downtime.
Yeah.
Camping, we camp. I do a lot of exercise. Exercise really helps me clear my mind. I try to work out every day, um, and just a lot of. My wife and I travel. We're doing a 4-week trip to Europe this summer.
Really?
So it's we do a lot of traveling. Um, and that's really pushed me outside of my comfort zone. Growing up in small town and living in small towns,
Mhm.
and all of a sudden you're in Rome where nobody speaks your language, right? This will
Mhm.
be our 3rd trip over there. Um, so that helps keep life interesting too.
Yeah, who do you are you gonna be making phone calls? Mindset training in Rome?
Probably. I've done it before. So
Really?
yeah, I mean that's the beautiful about my job. And I do some things in person if I happen to be around,
Mhm.
but I most of it's done on the phone. And so if I'm on the way somewhere, I pull my truck over to a gas station. I couldn't tell you how many mindset sessions I've done from my truck sitting in the parking lot of Casey's, right? So it's the great part of the job is I can do it from anywhere at any time. And um, I guess consider it a privilege to be able to help people from anywhere at any time because of the
Mhm.
modern technology we have. So
Do you that just got me thinking, do you do anything prior to get yourself in the right mindset to give advice or to um coach somebody through a mindset session? And maybe now you've been doing it for so long it's second nature, but I'm just picturing like, oh, I got mindset training, I'm pulling into Casey's, I'm kind of frazzled a little bit. Now I have to try to go into this mindset coaching session and beyond beyond my game, you
mhm.
know, because this is only 30 minutes. It's the only 30 minutes I have for this week with this wrestler or this person. So again, what do you do to prepare and get in the right mindset to, teach what you're
I'm
gonna
smiling 'cause
teach?
that's a great question because what I do is I do the exact same things I tell my athletes to do, right? I do self-talk every day, right? I have daily affirmations I say, I visualize myself, I do deep breathing when I want to calm down to reset my mind. Um, I do things, I have a morning ritual I do, I drink water, I exercise, I pray, I've got, you know, and I was really kind of off last night because I'd been gone for 4 days and I had gotten to do my normal ritual. I eat certain things, right? I don't always eat great, but I try to have this routine that
Hmm.
really helps. Try to help myself be my best every day, and so I try to stick with that routine. Now, if I'm in my truck and I'm pulling over, the other thing I do is I take notes. Right, I take lots of notes. Once I get done talking with an athlete or a team, like I'm on my computer, I've got a Google Doc on every team on exactly what we talked about, what I want to make sure I hit next time I talk to them, what they said, maybe what their goals are, um, what's the area that they said they're going to work on this week. I got to make them accountable next week, right? So I try to do a good job of taking notes so I can really keep track of every team and every kid and know exactly what they need that next week.
Gotcha. Okay. And who holds you accountable? When something doesn't go right, or if if that athlete doesn't reach their goal, you know, how do you respond? Because that can be pretty difficult. Even though you're not their coach, you're not right there in the corner with them. But I'm sure it hurts you a little bit that they don't reach, that they don't get what they want. So how do you, hold yourself accountable and get yourself to change your own mindset, if you will?
Hmm. Hmm. And it's kind of a gut punch. I've had some of those this week, right? Um, had a female athlete at the Nationals in Cedar Rapids this week who is, she's up 6-2 in the blood round. Looks like she's going to be an All-American, and she gets caught and pinned. And she was ahead of the national runner-up. She was ahead of the 5th place finisher, and she didn't get to step on the pedestal or on the podium. One thing that really helps is we really, really emphasize focus on the process of getting better and not winning. Like we're not trying to we say surrender the outcome. Let go of the outcome. You just try to be your best, right? You go out and let it fly, be your best, and then you accept whatever outcome you get. And so sometimes I have to remind myself of that, because when I do see somebody lose a match that I've worked with and I know how big that goal was, it is like I just got punched in the gut, right? And I have to remind myself, no, I'm trying to take this athlete from here to here. And the path is not a straight line, right? The path is setback, grow, setback, grow, setback, grow. And so when those setbacks happen, I've got to remind myself that every setback is a learning opportunity, right? Every setback is an opportunity to get better, because we all learn more from our setbacks than we do from our victories. And I always say, every setback is a setup for a comeback. Every setback is a setup for a comeback. So it's all about the mind, right? You gotta frame it the right way. We want to win every match, of course. We want to get every job. We want to, I do a lot of public speaking too. Everything I do, before I go up and do public speech, just for example, because I'll be real nervous sometimes, is, one thing I try to joke around, get myself to smile and laugh, so that when the brain's smiling, it doesn't realize that you're stressed. The second thing is I always tell myself, surrender the outcome. The outcome doesn't matter. All that matters is you get up there and do what you've trained your mind and your body to do. And the third thing I tell myself is, I'm going to crush it, man. I'm going to crush this thing. And so those are the three things that work for me. And so I try to help athletes learn to develop things that'll work for them, because everybody's different. And so, yeah, do I have things I do to prepare for any stressful situations in my life? So do I, but they might not be the same things you need to do. So that's part of the mindset training, is help you learn what to do when you're in an uncomfortable situation that's going to help you perform at your very best. Long answer to a short question.
Mm-hmm. No, that was good. Because the last thing I want to ask is, how do you tailor it to each individual? Because like you just said, that you could speak to 10 different people, 20 different people, and they could all take it a different way, or they all need 20 different ways to almost essentially say the same thing, or 20 different ways to get them motivated. So that sounds like that could be pretty tricky, for you to find what that itch is for each kid to scratch, essentially.
Mm-hmm. And it is, because I can give them generally, for example, if you're thinking about yourself getting tired, you're probably not going to wrestle as well. But if you think about tiring your opponent out, you're probably going to wrestle better. I can give them generalities like that, but it's not a cookie cutter business here, right? It's everybody's different, like you're saying. So for example, the second lesson we do with every kid is we have them think through their 3 best matches, and we have them write down what were they thinking and feeling before and during their best matches. And so what were the thoughts that you had before your best matches? Okay, now let's look for some patterns. What are the things that you're thinking and feeling, and what type of energy level did you have when you walked on the mat that made you just, be on your A game that day? And so we're having the kids think through it. I'm asking a lot of questions. They're writing, they're thinking, they're trying to think back to their best matches. Next page. All right, now let's think about your worst matches. What's the very worst performance you had this year? Doesn't matter if you won or lost. Where did you feel like you wrestled really poorly? Okay, what's another one? Let's figure out what you were thinking and feeling for all 3 of those matches. Okay, let's look for some patterns. I had a kid one time said, well, I called my mom to tell her what mat I was on, and she reminded me that I had a homework assignment due tomorrow. I was thinking about my homework when I stepped on the mat. Another one's like, oh, the dual score was close, and I was looking at the scoreboard, worried about what the score was going to be. Right? So we start looking for what are these common things that are distracting the kids from not performing at their best. Now we compare. These things make me wrestle good. These thoughts and feelings make me wrestle worse. All right, let's spend some time. How can we get you to be in this spot every single time you perform now? What are the techniques we're going to do to get you to this place, not this place? And so it really is personalized. It's asking a lot of questions, asking the kids to do a lot of thinking, writing, processing, and then practicing, right? Building a great mindset is no different than learning how to do a great single leg. right? It takes repetition, it takes tweaking, it takes practice, it takes belief that you can hit it. It's the same thing with mindset. These are all skills that you can develop and get good at over months of practice. And that's why we don't recommend that people jump on our program for a month. Not long enough to make long-term changes in your thought patterns and habits if you only do it a month.
6 months is the minimum,
Yes, 6 months is the minimum.
is the recommended minimum, I should say.
It's we do have a 30-day transformation where you can basically by 30 days with a mindset coach. It's the next best thing to having a mindset coach move into your house with you. Okay. We do have that. But even after that, we're going to want you to be on a long-term program to continue to work on your mindset, because it does take time to change habits, patterns, and ways of thinking.
Yeah. And the proof is in the pudding. You know, you listed some guys that you've already had and you've talked with and you've coached with. So the proof is there. I appreciate the time. I'm going to let you go before you give off too much of your secrets. And now everyone's going to have the secret formula here. But no, I appreciate you even just giving us a glimpse of what you offer, your career, how you got to this point. And like I said, what you guys have to offer, and hopefully, people listening will jump on this bandwagon of wrestling mindset, because, we always say wrestling, is 90% mental. So why not spend time on arguably the most important piece of our sport?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you think about it at school, if you're doing well in a school, except you're failing math class, you ought to be focused on math class for quite a while to get that grade up.
Right.
So if you got a wrestler who's strong, in condition, great technique, but they're struggling with mindset, why wouldn't we focus on mindset for a while? Right? I mean, it just makes sense.
Thanks again for listening to this episode of the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast. A special thanks to my guest Scott Litterer for taking the time to sit down and chat with me. Cover art was created and designed by Kristen Gill. Please feel free to rate and comment and subscribe to the podcast. Don't forget to check me out on Twitter, Instagram, and my Facebook page to hear more of my content. And you can check out my website, letstalkwrestlingpodcast.my.canva.site. And as always, be sure to tune in to hear the next guest of the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast. Take care. We'll see you next time.